Good morning. I'm Sandy Walden of Serenity, your master grief coach and grief coach trainer. This morning, I'd like to talk about respond versus react. They are not the same thing. At the time of this recording, the US is in the middle of this pandemic. Well, truly, the entire world is. This is November 20th, and so we have Thanksgiving right around the corner, and we are experiencing a major wave of this pandemic. So there is confidence for many people, incredible fear for others, and everything in between. Now, if you're someone who is grieving, many emotions might be heightened. So I'd like to talk to you about something that matters, and that is the difference between reacting and responding. Our reactions are those things that are coming from our subconscious, they're automatic. It's that knee jerk response, so to speak. Our response can also be knee jerk, or we can take the time to take a few deep breaths, even if it's only one. But I encourage a few more to consider how we would truly like to respond. When we're grieving, we can be incredibly tender. Um, we sometimes take hits that aren't intentional. We don't always understand how someone means something. And sometimes there are hard balls that are lobbed at us that are just incredibly unkind and unfair, those secondary wounds. With all of these things going on, I encourage you to again take those deep breaths, feel what you feel, and ask yourself, how will I feel good about this later today? Now, when I work with clients, this is a really big thing that we work on a lot. It's something that I learned to not overreact with a bad temper many years ago, because I would often find myself being in a situation where I wanted to respond out of anger or sarcasm. And so I learned to stop and think, okay, that'll feel really good right now, really satisfying. What about in 10 minutes? What about later today? And then I would stretch it. How will I feel about having responded if I have to tell tell about my response to someone I like and respect, my husband, one of my children, a good friend? What sort of feeling do I want to have about this? Yeah, it might be about what feeling I would like to give to that person, but that's usually the immediate. Our response. We have control over our response. When you remember that you have choices about how you respond, you remind yourself that you are a powerful being. I think about somebody who said something just rather mind numbing to me at my son's funeral. And I'm not going to repeat it here because it's not helpful. But when it happened, I was completely taken aback and I wanted to respond completely inappropriately, loudly. Um, but I remember taking those deep breaths and asking myself what I would feel better about later. Now, before I got to the whatever, however I would feel about later, I actually went through the thoughts of, if I'm loud and obnoxious to this woman, I mean, really loud, which is what I wanted to do. My husband, my surviving sons, all the boys in the neighborhood are here. They've got my back. And that made me sort of laugh in here and say, I don't need to do that. This time, this was, as I said, at my son Mike's funeral, is about honoring Mike and all of the love these people have. And it helped me walk away. It helped me to walk away. Now, as I said, we're in this time that's incredibly stressful for a lot of people because of the pandemic. If you're grieving, you have added stressors, heightened emotions. As I said, you might be very tender. So I encourage you to think about and notice the difference between how you react, what you feel and hear automatically, and practice taking one, preferably 3 to 5 breaths, and asking yourself, how do I choose to respond? How will I feel better moving forward? Something that can be really helpful is to make a plan. For instance, I've had clients say, well, of course I had to respond this way because she knows when she says this, it pushes my buttons. And so she knows I'm going to be angry, and so I am. Ooh, I wonder if you hear that that in itself is a plan. Not a constructive or helpful plan, but it is. What if somebody, again, I'm thinking about clients who have said, well, he knows when he does this, of course I'll do that. It's not an of course. Because we're taking the time to think about it, we have the opportunity to choose to respond differently. Is this about the other people you are with? You can tell yourself it is or it isn't. What I care about is you, how you feel after, because that's what matters. If you're going to be in a stressful situation, whether it's talking to someone at school from the teacher's point of view, the parent's point of view, the child's point of view, whether it's an employer, it's a grocery store, it's at one of these outings. Plan to take a few deep breaths and ask yourself, how will I feel better about this in the future? Later today, later this month, in a few years. How will I feel better about myself? Just take those few deep breaths. Because here's something I know. Even practicing this, when you are done listening to this video or while you're listening, is training yourself, getting in the groove so that it becomes more naturally. As I said, I learned to do this with myself many years ago because I didn't want to be hurtful to people, mostly because I did not want to feel shame afterwards. Yeah, it was all about me and how I wanted to feel. So I encourage you, practice. This is said, this occurs, this is what I feel. How do I choose to respond? What feels better? I would love it if you would share with me, forgive me, how that feels for you. When you take those few moments to detach, to deliberately respond with intention, how is it different from what might have been your automatic reaction? We have more power than we imagine. When I work with clients, this is something that we spend as much time as they need. And don't be surprised if it's something that's revisited. Because guess what? It's natural, it's normal, it's very human. We have immediate reactions. That's our subconscious. Our conscious mind can guide us to making a response that we feel better about. For today, I wish you a day of peace and joy and gentle healing. If you'd like to know more about working with me one-on-one as your grief coach or as your grief coach trainer, just send me a private message. I'll get back to you. No pressure. This is about what works best for you. Namaste.